podcast may have been paid for by the New World Order.
Welcome back to the No Gimmicks podcast. We have a very, very special edition tonight. Right now, I want to introduce a man. I followed his career from afar. He used to work for World Championship Wrestling, WCW. This guy right here was the voice of the NWO, the one, the only, Neal Pruitt. Welcome to the No Gimmicks podcast, sir.
Oh, it's great to be here, Frank. Thanks for inviting me, man.
Not a problem at all. So tell us what you've been up to since the closure of World Championship Wrestling back in 2001.
I've done quite a few things. Luckily, I tell people that I've been one of the luckiest people alive because I can, basically use my camera and get into places you can't buy a ticket to. So I've been so lucky. I did a stint with the Monique Show and the Steve Harvey Project. I edited with them very briefly with the Steve Harvey Project, but mostly with the Monique Show, and had a good time doing that. I also that was with BET.
Yeah.
I directed a TV show on CNN International called The Music Room.
Okay.
People like Moby and people like that were on there. And luckily I got to work with all the people that I had as camera people that were at WCW, so that was terrific. Worked with several people like Ryan Chapman and Ralph Prado and a few people that were just excellent. We had the best crews in America around the world, I thought, when I worked with WCW. So it was a pleasure to work with them again. And I did a medical show in Florida briefly. I directed for the Black Family Channel.
Okay.
And some C-SPAN stuff. And I'm an editor that did a lot of freelancing with companies around Coca-Cola, Delta, Chick-fil-A. I worked with Gwinnett Magazine for a while with Gwinnett Tech, and just had a very good career. I've been very lucky. And now I work with a very terrific company, and we do defense contracting. So I'll leave it at that.
Gotcha. Sounds good. So could you tell us exactly what your duties were when you were employed with WCW? Something that we as fans may have seen on television.
Well, a lot of the interviews is where I started back in the day, and I did audio for that, for the interview room, and I kind of developed a new system on how to keep track of all the various shows and the promos that went inside them. And that impressed them by me changing their format on how they did it. And I think they really appreciated that a bunch. So that helped me go out of the interview room where I was kind of giving suggestions and writing a few lines for people. And even I was lucky enough to even be asked to critique both Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross, which was a real honor.
Oh, wow.
Had a few go-rounds with Gordon Solie.
Okay.
A little bit cantankerous. And I even got a photograph of that as a younger man when I was down in Tampa at the Sportatorium, where a lot of the Dusty Rhodes matches took place. And people like Diamond Dallas Page started there. And all the top superstars used to go through there. And Gordon, I didn't think was doing what Gordon should have done as far as the way he presented himself on camera, because he was the dean of professional wrestling. It's my job to make him look and sound that way, and he wasn't. So I just helped him out to do it again. And I think I was possibly one of the first people to ever tell him to do it again.
Is this around the time when Gordon Solie was kind of checking out of wrestling a little bit? He had the issues were going on with Gordon Solie?
I don't know if it's that late or not, but it was in his final days with WCW.
Yeah.
Actually, it's probably I don't know when his final days were, but it was probably about 1990s, somewhere around there, 1990 something. It was before the NWO and everything hit. But I used to help produce the control centers.
Okay.
With Eric Bischoff. And
yes.
I'd hang out with him sometime afterwards when he was still down there doing the third-rate announcer type job. And we thought Eric worked really hard and always appreciated his work. And still, to this day, I speak to Eric every now and then, and he was well represented, I thought, in the book Nitro, The Incredible Rise, Inevitable Collapse of Ted Turner's WCW, which is my co-host Guy Evans with Neal Pruitt's Secrets of WCW Nitro
Right. Yes.
on our podcast, and I've been in touch with him every now and then, and talk to some of the other guys too, and really always enjoy the time with him.
Yeah, I remember watching Eric back in the day. It was the WCW Pro wrestling show, and he would. It's crazy to me that this guy went from being basically a C-string announcer. He would do some stuff with Teddy Long, and then he went on to become like the guy in WCW, become the main guy. So, I mean, how did that? I mean, because you were there obviously. So how did that? How did that transition take place? I mean, you were there to see it. I mean, this guy, you would go in there and produce this guy on the control center for, Halloween Havoc or something like that, and all of a sudden now he's running the company.
Well, I always thought Eric had pretty good ideas, and he was ambitious and a hard worker, and there were a couple other people I think that were kind of up for the job, but I think after they had a few stints with people like Bill Watts and Kip Fry, that they kind of had enough of people that really weren't savvy as far as dealing with people. And Eric did know the business. He had worked with Fern Gagne,
right?
Started there, I believe. And I don't know. Like I said, I thought he had some good ideas, and he seemed like the young blood that could take it up a notch, and he did.
Yeah, he did. He absolutely did. I remember the first show Eric actually was in charge of was Super Brawl '93.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that was the show where Ric Flair came back to the company after he ascended to WWF, and he had that showdown with Barry Windham when he tried to put the belt on Barry, and they were going to start their whole thing. So yeah,
I love Barry Windham. He was great working with him.
Barry Windham was awesome.
Terrific guy. I really enjoyed working with him and Flair. And you mentioned Teddy Long earlier, and great guy, and Ron Simmons and Booker T, and just so many great people that I got to deal with. I mean, I had a lot of fun with Diamond Dallas Page and Macho Man Randy Savage, of course, and Sting and Luger, and a lot of the big names.
Those were the days, man. Those were definitely the days. Like we on this podcast, I kind of the historian of the duo, so I always
you probably know more than I do.
I think I probably got you. I don't know. We'll probably see.
As time passes, of course, I don't remember as much, but that logo does look awful familiar.
I think you would know it. I think you would know it. We're going to get to it. There you go. So, so you were at WCW, and we've heard the stories and read the books, and the Guy Evans book is a phenomenal read and listen. And if you people out there are watching this podcast right now and listening to the podcast here, you need to check that book out. It's on Audible right now. You can go to Audible and get it. You can listen to it. I listen to it. It's a great book, very thorough. It's better than that other book that came out. I'm not going to mention it, but that other book that came out. This one goes in depth. It actually has, Jamie Kellner talking about why he did what he did, and all of that. So it's a very, very good listen. If you haven't checked out that book, you need to go check it out right now.
Well, like Eric says, that Guy got interviews with people that Eric would have loved to talk to. I mean, over 150 people were interviewed for the book. And the initial way that Guy, who wrote Eric's latest book, the way they got to meet is Eric actually tracked me down to show him where Guy Evans was. He goes, I got to meet this dude. He told the truth. And from then on, they were friends from that point on. And I'm glad to see that, they got to work together on the book, the Eric's latest book.
Yeah, definitely. So you were there in 1994. Hulk Hogan comes into WCW.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the fortunes kind of changed a little bit for World Championship Wrestling. Hogan's first, Hogan had a couple of appearances on TV. Clash of Champions was one. But then he came in at Bash at the Beach, wrestled Ric Flair. How was that? You were there for that. I mean, did you ever get to produce Hulk Hogan?
Absolutely. If you got to see the contract signing between Hogan and Ted Turner and Ric Flair, I produced that segment.
Okay.
And only because there was a kind of a Ohio contingent there that worked on that program. The
Yeah.
person technically actually pressed the buttons to change the different camera angles. He's from Ohio, and so is the audio guy, and me too from Northeast Ohio. So that was
Gotcha.
kind of cool to be able to collaborate with those guys. And Rick Morganelli always did a terrific job on the set design, like that you saw on Halloween Havoc and all the various Bash at the Beaches, and we got to work together doing that on the set design for the pay-per-views, which was a terrific time. He got to really be creative, and he pulled it off every time and just did some amazing work. I got to work with him on the set design for those and make the posters and things like that. And I still have the contract somewhere at home where Ted Turner signed it.
Oh,
So
that's worth some money. I'm
it was a
telling
real joy. And
you.
Ted
Yeah.
Turner was terrific every time. I worked with him a couple times and got to direct him twice.
Congrats.
But he was terrific. And I'll tell you, Hogan and I got along great all the time because I treated him like I treat anybody and just talking to him normally. And he knew that I was out to make him look good, and that was my job, and I did my job, and we got together and worked out great. I never had a problem.
Yeah, and you mentioned a minute ago about the sets and the stages and all that, and that's one thing I always thought that you guys did better than the WWF
Oh,
was
cool,
in
thank you.
set designs. Like Bash at the Beach, you actually looked like you were at the beach. You know, when
Yeah,
you saw that, you know what I'm saying? So you
Rick
guys,
Morganelli was amazing, and his
yeah.
staff and crew. He had several guys that worked with him, and a gentleman who's since passed away, Glenn Boyette, was in charge of the Turner sets and things like that, and making a lot of those. He was an integral part of that, and his wife. And boy, the Boyettes, they really did a good job and did spin the wheel, make the deal, and all those different props that you'd see. And unfortunately, a lot of those made their way to the dumpster because they just didn't have any place to put them. It would have been a terrific thing to have in a museum somewhere.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, the Halloween Havoc, the giant pumpkin and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff, jack o' lantern and all that, just great
Yeah,
stuff.
I don't know that I worked on that one because I think I may have kind of gotten out of that part of it by then because I was a supervising feature producer at that point, so I really didn't have the time or the bandwidth to be able to do that. But a lot of the different configurations of the TVs that were on the set, stuff like that, where they had like we had a really long band of televisions and a big stack, all that stuff. I had to build a lot of the graphics. They went inside of those and built them in certain ways because back then you just couldn't position them anywhere you wanted. You had to actually put them on the part of the tape that made that showed that part of the screen, and like you'd cut the screen in half, and this part would be like say Jeff Jarrett, and this would be the match that he was in, something
Oh
like that.
wow.
Yeah, it
So
was a little bit more complicated than it is today.
So you were there, obviously talking about production. You were there for the. So I remember the WCW. One of my favorite intros for WCW was WCW Saturday Night, the cybernetic um, Terminator kind of
Yeah,
intro. So you guys, obviously, you worked on that as well.
unfortunately not. Dan
Oh,
Bynum directed that.
uh,
The Turner Scene Shop did that, and it was funny because when they had gone over that and made that look, I saw the set and we went over there and looked at it. And I could have helped them out because my father worked in a steel mill and they were kind of worried about where all the lines were on the floor and stuff like that for the safety and all that stuff. I could have helped
yeah.
them out with that. But Pat McNeely was a gentleman who did a lot of the set design for Saturday Night, and he's a great artist and worked with people like Triple Horse Productions,
Okay.
brothers that did. They've done a lot of Christian movies now, but they did that film back then, and man, it really turned out great. And of course, Dan Bynum was the director of that show and went on to work for Ring of Honor and various other wrestling companies. And I produced WCW Saturday Night at that right around that time, and that was my real big break to go into the truck and be able to work with those professionals like that, every day made great television.
So you also worked on WCW, the syndicated show, WCW Worldwide as well.
No, I didn't do worldwide. I
Did you do
did
Worldwide?
actually direct something on the set. Worldwide was kind of done with a collaboration of, I wouldn't say leftover matches, but matches that really didn't have to be so timely. And it was obviously taped.
Right.
And that went to Worldwide. And that was actually Guy Evans, who lived in Wales at the time. That was his first intro to watching WCW when he lived in Wales.
Oh
So,
wow.
yeah, so that was kind of interesting. But I really didn't do much of the Worldwide show. I was highly involved with most every TBS product. Kemper Rogers and I, who did the design for the NWO and all that, and the crazy editing and helped me with that. He was the editor that I worked with, and we worked on Fixed Fridays. So every show that went on the Turner Network and I guess some worldwide, we had to make the things right. Like when matches weren't happening because of somebody breaking a leg or something, we had to go back and find Gene Okerlund saying something about somebody. Then we had to kind of make things up behind graphics and rearrange words and stuff like that. But it was a great experience on learning how to fix things. And like I said, I've had a great career and doing really what I love to do.
So you basically worked on the big shows. Like you weren't on you didn't work on the jabroni shows, the squash shows. You were the big time. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask you. September 4th, 1995, WCW Monday Nitro, the Mall of America, Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure you worked you worked there, right? Worked at
Yep.
Nitro, and how was that? I mean, what did you think about that? Because I'm asking this because here's the deal. You have the WWF over here doing their Monday Night Raw show, but WWF is the king of sports entertainment, and then here's WCW, who hasn't really, they've been there, from Crockett, from Jim Crockett Promotions, and then Ted Turner bought it, and then he, changed the World Championship Wrestling, which was an old name that Jim Barnett had in Australia. But then you kind of transition to this point where now we're going to go head to head with the WWF, and it's kind of like you go in there with the 800-pound gorilla.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys actually, it looked good, man. That very first episode of Monday Nitro, it looked damn good. So, could you talk about how that was produced, especially in that kind of a setting, like a mall?
Mm-hmm. Well, luckily, Eric was from that area originally,
Yeah.
from around Minnesota. And we had a great lighting person who always brought it every time. Rick Morganelli, who, I'm sorry, Jeff Orenstein. I said Rick earlier because
Right.
it's set design, but Jeff Orenstein, the lighting director, still works with AEW.
Oh, okay.
Does all their lights. If you kind of think it looks like a WCW product, it's because Keith Mitchell, my former boss, who turned the reins over from WCW Saturday Night to me, he was the producer for the longest time, who then went on to help Terrell, the producer now. And it's a big, happy family up there with WCW people and former wrestlers that were working at the time, like, Chris Jericho and people like Dustin Rhodes. And I knew Cody, when he was a little kid. And
Right.
it's really great to see those people still flourishing and doing really well.
Yeah. So,
The Mall of America was terrific. We gave it a big look, I thought. There were some great surprises that I wasn't really even privy to. And seeing Lex Luger come on there,
that was the one.
there just the night before, and that was a huge deal. And I've always been a fan of Flying Brian Pillman.
Right.
He and I are both from Ohio, and he was from Cincinnati. And I actually saw his last college football game because I was down at University of Miami, and my college, Bowling Green State University. We played them, and I saw his last game in college, and that was really cool to kind of match that up later when we got to talking. And it's too bad that his passing, but he was a great athlete. And you want to go see some great matches, go back and watch Super Brawl 2. I think it might have been St. Petersburg, but it was against Jushin Thunder Liger. What fantastic matches those guys had.
Yeah, and it's funny because you bring up that match, and then they were also the opening match on Nitro, from the Mall of America. So that's
right. That's right.
great. Yeah.
I forgot about that. See, more than I do. I told you.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm always I stay in the past. People
I like
like,
that shirt, by the way. That's a nice looking shirt. And
we're gonna
the
get
background. You really zhuzhed it up for me, man.
I did. I even got So.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
telling
the
you,
only
man.
guy that made it rival you is I did an interview one time with a guy from Perth, Australia.
Uh,
And he had all the NWO gimmicks. It was amazing.
Dude, I have so much NWO stuff in the closet. This is nothing. Like, this is
So it is
really
for
nothing.
life.
Yeah, it's for life for me. Yeah, definitely. I went to the Royal Rumble this year, and I had the Outsiders jacket and the Outsiders pants and the Outsiders shirt because I still rep
Nice.
it. I don't give a damn about the bloodline, man. It's NWO, baby. So that's how I
Appreciate
go
that, man.
big. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we're gonna transition now into the NWO, but before we get into that, I gotta tell you. So I was on the network and I'm watching some of these early WCW pay-per-views from 1986, and I hear your voice. You're doing voiceovers for Super Brawl, and you're doing the voiceovers for WCW Uncensored. I want to ask you about that. What was it? The Doomsday Cage match. Remember that the Alliance and Hulkamania. It was the Dungeon of Doom teaming with the Horsemen, and you had Zeus out there, Z Gangster.
Yeah, if
That
you want to talk about any of those videos where they were in the cave and all that, I didn't have anything to do with those.
you didn't have nothing to do with that crap.
Thank you.
Yeah,
No,
that was
I didn't do
crap.
any. I didn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah, that was crap. Hall and Nash said it best. Before we got down here, it was just an organization that was pushing their sons and doing that Dungeon of Doom crap, and that's what it was. So we're gonna go right into it now. It was Memorial Day, 1996.
Hey, if they're
Scott
talking about
Hall.
Dustin Rhodes, by the way, if they're talking about pushing their sons, Dustin Rhodes, I've always admired his work, man. So,
Oh,
I would
I
have
don't
to
know if they were
disagree with
talking.
them.
I don't know if they were talking about him. They might have been talking about a certain Watts. So
I could
remember,
see that possibility. Okay.
yeah, remember that one
Mm-hmm.
because Kevin didn't like Bill Watts.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan myself.
Yeah, a lot of people weren't.
Or
So,
Kip Fry.
oh
And I
really?
like everybody.
What was wrong with Kip Fry? Because I've heard his name.
He didn't have any idea what he was doing.
Yeah.
We went to do a press conference for the South Carolina class we were going to do over there, and it was a tag team tournament where we were bringing in people from across the world, and I was the producer for that segment where they announced all the teams and everything with Gene Okerlund starting it off, and then Dusty Rhodes being involved with it. And loved Dusty from the very beginning. We got along great and miss him to this day.
Yeah.
He was absolutely terrific to work with, and what a crazy fun golf partner. We did many rounds, but anyway, Kip Fry goes, "Hey, shouldn't we set our cameras off, not quite in center because, all the press that would be here and all that?" It's like, we're putting on the event, dude. You think we wouldn't get first dibs on exactly where we put our cameras? I said, no, we're going to put it right in the center. Just stupid stuff like that. We're just thinking but not thinking. It was just a bizarre little trip as to why he was even there. It was
I actually saw him, because on the WWE Network they have 3 seasons of WCW Saturday Night.
Okay.
So he's on there on an episode of WCW Saturday Night. Jim Ross says, "Let's welcome Mr. Kip Alvin Fry." So he comes out there, and I'm like, well, why is this even happening? No wonder you're getting
We
killed.
wondered why. We had no idea as to why he was even there. He
Yeah.
didn't do anything.
Right.
We didn't, at least that we saw. We just kept on doing what we did. We tried to do our best no matter who regime was in there, even with the Bill Watts era.
Yeah.
And, we had great people from Turner Broadcasting too. That the crews that we had, man, they were the best in the world. And I'll put them up against anybody and take anybody on with crews like we had. I'll tell you, they were terrific.
People, and I've heard Kevin Nash say this too, and I have to disagree, and 100%. There was a point in time where I thought, as a fan, watching the 2 shows, especially during the Monday Night War,
Mm-hmm.
the WCW product just looked way better than the WWF's. It looked smoother. You would look at the WWF show and it looked like crap.
Oh,
especially when Monday Night Raw, when they had those cardboard red letters as a set, and then you turn over to TNT and Nitro, and you got the big WCW letters, and it's just, and then the pyrotechnics, the flames coming through the ring posts that they would rip off later.
Keith Hildebrand,
okay,
who did all those. A lot of those for a long time. Keith Hildebrand, also from Ohio, Cincinnati.
Yeah. I know I was.
Happy birthday, Keith, just the other day. But yeah, he was terrific. Like I said, the people that even did like moving around the things inside the truck and all that, they were just awesome. And I'm not going to take anything away from WWE because they're people too. I mean, they're tremendous. And every time I got to work with them, well, like, when I was with Deep South Wrestling with Jody Hamilton and Bill DeMont, Hugh Morris, and training people like The Miz and Kofi Kingston and all them, we really had a terrific time there. But man, they always treated me very nicely, and even Vince McMahon did. And they're top-notch professionals also.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they're the top dog, obviously, in the
Yep.
industry. But it's just WCW's just it's just if I mean, especially the way they've taken that. I mean, when I look at Nitro right now and all the stuff they've done to it on the network, as far as just clearing it up and cleaning it up and all that stuff, it looks
Yeah.
like it was produced yesterday
Mm.
because
Wow.
you didn't have to do anything to it really.
Yeah.
You have
Well,
to.
a lot of Nitro was done under duress. That's for sure, because a lot of times they just didn't have a plan, and like you wouldn't even have like the rest of the show. Like you're already like two segments in, and it
That's
just
what I
kind of
heard.
went by the seat of the pants sometimes, and that's not my that's not how I'd like to do it. But
Right.
those guys were able to get it done, and a lot of that on the air stuff I didn't really have much to do with because I did most of the feature production backstage. And like anywhere Hogan and Flair went primarily, that's the stuff that I was involved with. The features that were done in interviews, music videos, um, stuff, history packages, and things like that.
Pretty good stuff. So Scott Hall comes into the company.
Mm-hmm.
He came down,
Macon.
Macon, Georgia, comes down through there, comes down through the crowd. Larry Zabisco says, why the hell would you have him come through the set? If he comes through the entrance where he's like he works here, have him come through the crowd. So Scott comes in, does the famous promo, "You won a war, you got a war."
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Nash comes in after Scott. This is where look at the ashes of play, that whole thing. And they're the outsiders. And for that few weeks on WWE television, I mean, they're out there. I mean, it looked real. It looked
It
like
did.
big time.
Man, I'll tell you, it was great. Yeah,
Yeah,
we loved it. Everybody loved it.
yeah. And it's just like you can clearly see WCW was turning a corner, and then it finally came ahead. July 7th, 1996, Daytona Beach, the Ocean Center, Bash at
Mm-hmm.
the Beach.
Mm-hmm.
The 3-on-3. It was the outsiders with a mystery man versus Macho Man, Sting, Lex Luger. Were you at Bash at the Beach that night?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
What was the atmosphere in there once Hulk Hogan came down and dropped the leg on Randy Savage, and the place just we see it now on the video, just the crowd going. I always look back now because I've seen the match 100 times. I always pay attention to the crowd. And I
Yeah.
look at the crowd, and the crowd, one guy is like pushing his friend, like, "Oh, I told you." Then the other people are like, "What the hell?" And then the
Mm-hmm.
other guy's like cheering. It's a very strange reactions going on in the building, but you were there, so I mean,
Yep.
how was it?
Wow, that was a great night. When Craig Leathers came to me, I worked directly under Craig, and he directed the Nitro shows. He goes, "I think you're going to want to step in the truck for this one."
Oh wow,
Because a lot of times, I would like kind of mill around the back, and I wouldn't see half the matches sometimes.
yeah,
I'd be talking to somebody, or we'd be setting up another interview, or you know, we had all kind of stuff to do all the time, which is great. I love the job.
right.
But this time he said, "You're going to want to be in the truck for this one." I was like, "Oh, cool. Something's good going to go down." So we went there, and I stood behind Craig and them, and I forget who was actually TDing, probably Rick Fancher, Rocket, and to see Hogan come down the aisle like that, and then, like you said, drop the leg. It was pandemonium in a good way, and we couldn't have asked for a better reaction.
Do you know? I got a question here. Do you know of anybody else besides Hulk Hogan and Sting that were considered to be the third man? Or
Yeah.
you had,
Oh, Sting. No, not that I know of. I mean, Sting. He was the one that's gonna do it if Hulk didn't, as
yeah,
far as I knew. Um, and right away, the reaction was so terrific. We got to and do the NWO promos, and
Yeah,
it changed my life.
we're going to get into that right now because the NWO, Hogan says the New World Order of Wrestling, brother, and all that, which is something Larry Zbysko said a couple days before on Nitro.
Oh,
he says we're going to see a New World Order this Sunday.
Yeah, that was Kevin Sullivan's line, by the way.
Yeah,
Kevin Sullivan, I don't think he gets the credit that he deserves for a lot of the good stuff that was involved with the NWO. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, we hear
he thought of the name, as far as I remember. Yeah.
So the first promos for the NWO, I've heard Kevin Nash say this a lot. He says the way they looked at it was the initial, I guess, 6 weeks or whatever, that they were the outsiders. They wanted to be real, and it was like the big um, rap war going on between the East Coast and the West Coast, Death Row Records and all that versus Bad Boy. That's what Hall and Nash were. You bring Hulk Hogan into the mix. You know Hulk Hogan's promo style, Neil. You know what you're gonna do, brother, and all that. So you bring him in. You put him in the soundstage. You were there. Soundstage. The very first promo for the NWO. How does that go? And what happened? Because obviously something happened. Because Kevin says this ain't working.
Well, one of the things that we were able to get, which is kind of cool looking at first, you'll see the NWO logo that rakes across our bodies.
Yes.
Like that. And I thought that would be a good idea. And Jeff Orenstein kindly put together that for his lighting people, and they burn all the.
They lost Neil there for a second.
Sorry about that, dudes.
No problem.
That's TV, man.
That's live TV.
Yeah, I remember one time that happened where and hopefully this won't happen again. I don't know what's up. My phone's fully charged. I'll let you know that.
Right.
Lighting's looking okay. But that happened one time when they were at Panama City, and I just thought that would have been a really good opportunity for them to act as if the NWO did it. But I even emailed them and texted them because I knew that they were kind of in a panic about that. But they didn't use that. But that would have been a good one.
That would have been pretty. Yeah, that would have been. Yeah.
That was just a thought.
Yeah, that would have been good. So, before we lost you there, we were talking about the promos and all that. But before we get to the promos, I actually want to talk real quick about two things: the logo and the music. So, who designed the logo? Where did it come from? Because there's actually two versions of this logo. There's this one here that the WWE produces on the T-shirts that I hate. And then there's the other one. Now, the other one has how do I explain it? It looks a little bit grittier. It's the one that you actually use when when you did the promos and it'll say the following announcement paid for by the New World Order. That one,
right. Mm-hmm.
They don't put that one on the T-shirts anymore for some reason. They just use this one. And
really?
Yeah, I don't get that. Like it's the wrong logo.
It may last a lot longer, something like that, because of the thickness of the paint, or because of the thickness of the letters or something. I'm just guessing. I don't know.
Yeah, I just think the WWE just doesn't know the hell
they're
doing.
print T-shirts.
Yeah. So who designed the logo, the logo, and also the song, the music? It's the NWO music. It's called Rock House. Frank Shelley. Mm-hmm. Where did all these things come from?
The logo was designed by a lady that's a graphic artist at Disney, and Disney or Universal. I think Disney.
Okay.
She's now a real estate person, and we actually found her recently. And
really?
Yeah, we didn't know who she was for the longest time, but I remember Guy Evans sent me a link to her stuff, and that's pretty cool to find her again. But Rob Wright, who was a senior editor with us, he then went on to work with CNN to produce the promos for Larry King Live.
Okay.
And that was the guy who helped design the logo, and that was done while we were in Florida during the Olympics in '96. And the song is actually SCD 115 track 14.
Oh, wow.
That's how you say it in the language of reporting it to the various music companies that need to know what to hear is when. That was one of the songs. We picked out three of them. There's the editor, Tim Scott, who was with me. He only freelanced with us when we were in Disney. When we
Okay.
took over Disney MGM, we took over the whole edit facility to still work while we were down there because they were afraid that we won't be able to get the shows out if we stayed here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So they rented out a whole apartment, well, not an apartment complex, but a hotel area that was formerly an apartment complex, and we all went down to Disney for 10 weeks. But
Not too shabby.
that was one of the three songs that we let Eric listen to,
Uh-huh.
and he chose the one you hear over and over.
So, do you happen to? I mean, this is '96. You probably don't know. Do you remember what the other two songs that were in consideration?
No, I have. I mean, they were a little bit different vibe.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think we all kind of liked that song anyway. I mean, it was one of those things where it was different, and I thought that it was fit there, like especially the some of the ring outs and stuff like that they had in this song. I thought it really fit their vibe, and worked out really well.
Yeah. No, it worked out damn well till this day. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? I mean, this right here, this logo, it's still in the top 10 merchandise for WWE today. That is crazy.
Yeah,
man. People don't know.
They did a terrific job designing that, and the rawness of it all, and it was just so unusual. One thing that we did have a problem with, though, I thought WCW was, unfortunately, a lot of us that had kind of backgrounds where we were in television, we had style books and things like that, and just like any car company, Ford writes their text the same way every time. That's one thing that I thought we could have done a lot better job with. They just kind of went off in no man's land with the merchandise, and people just, I think, came up with suggestions and designs, and they took them, which was just not the way to do it. That was out of our control as production people. We would have had the Sting logo looking exactly the same way across all formats, and then eventually into social media. But they were just kind of doing what they wanted to do on their own, and I didn't really like that at all. I never really thought that was very professional looking or acting, but I wasn't in charge of that.
So the initial NWO well, hold on, we got a question. So was Neal there for the parking lot brawl? And if he was, how crazy was it really? I'm assuming they were talking about the when Hall and Nash attacked Disney MGM Studios on their own.
Oh, one of my favorites.
Yeah. Yeah.
I produced that segment.
Long darted Rey Mysterio into the trailer.
Lovely. I produced that segment.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was all staged from the very beginning. And what we did was we gathered together Keith Mitchell, Craig Leathers, Kevin Sullivan, and myself. And we gathered in one of those trailers, that one that you were seeing in the video.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so what's the plan? What are we thinking about doing here? And usually what we do is we find out where the beginning was and what the end was, and then fill in the middle and kind of figure out how to get from point A to point B, and then maybe have some kind of high spot in the middle somewhere. So we walked the premises back there and kind of figured out, okay, starting it off was going to be the Kevin Nash catching Rey Mysterio lawn dart. And then just the format after that was all kind of done like Hill Street Blues. If you ever saw that series. Anyway, Rope is a homage to Rope, which is a film that Alfred Hitchcock did, where it's all one shot the whole way through. And you have people carrying certain people to the other scenes. And the way we did it was we walked through it, and then we figured out which wrestlers were going to be involved in what scenes of that section. And then we talked to them like individually and kind of told them what their little part of the scene was. And if you watch it really closely, you can kind of tell where we go after this high spot where somebody got hit in the head, over the head of the arm or something like that at the very beginning. And then it progressed into another scene, which progressed into another scene. And if you really kind of break it down, you can see where we made the transitions at. And people knew that they weren't supposed to start their scene until they were triggered by what happened in the prior scene. So that's kind of how that progression worked and why it looks so flawlessly, smoothly going into the next scene, because they knew exactly where they're supposed to start, exactly where the camera was, and then what line they delivered as soon as the camera was on them. So we really practiced that to death, and it paid off, and I think is one of my proudest producing accomplishments. But what made it happen was, I think, the authenticity of the way the people acted that weren't wrestlers. I said, look, the only way we're going to pull this off, people know wrestling's a work. They know it's somewhat of a put on or a hoax. The people that they're going to be looking at they're not the wrestlers, because they are already suspect of them. But the production people, they're going to be looking, how do you react? And if you can act like you're in a chaotic mindset and portray that, it's going to put it over. And that's what's going to make it happen. It's going to be us, production people, making it, not so much the wrestlers, even though obviously they played an integral part. But if you watch it, the chaos and the looks in people's faces that were the production people, what sells that to the nth degree and made it look real, and made the people that were around the Disney area call in and jam the daggone Disney phone system because they thought it was a real riot, and it looked like it.
And so that was a legit. The fire department and all these people, EMS is coming. That was actually legit. That was
well, no, they knew it was going to happen. Those
okay.
people did, and they knew that was all going to go down, because you don't really want to just jump in an ambulance and do it, because, not to say that we haven't done that before.
Right.
I actually had to follow Hogan with the greatest cameraman Bill Tinsley. We had to follow Hogan one time, or Flair one time, in one of their matches, and we did actually run a red light. Luckily, there wasn't a whole lot of traffic.
Oh wow!
Because they were all at the arena. but yeah, that was orchestrated, man. We practiced the crap out of that thing with the way the camera moved, and I don't even remember actually who was running the camera at the time. It was probably a Steadicam. It was probably done by Snake, who was on my podcast. We told that story, or a story that's similar to it. And he did a lot of the Goldberg entrances where you see Goldberg like walk almost all the way around the building.
Oh, wow.
He was involved in a lot of those shots. And, wow, we were so happy with that. I can't tell you how great we felt when we saw the limo driving away with Macho Man reaching into the moonroof, sunroof. And luckily NWO, of course, held onto his arm and made sure he stayed on the top of the car. And, man, did it look good.
No, it man, it's just that story is just the fact that these guys were invading WCW, and the fact that you had heels and baby faces now working together. And I remember that scene. It starts off with Jimmy Hart running out there trying to get Lex Luger's attention. They go to the back. You see the first person that gets knocked out is Buff Bagwell, Marcus Bagwell. He gets taken out. Scotty Riggs is next.
I know that was off to the right.
Yeah.
And towards where they came in from to get the people in the backstage. And then you pan right or pan left with the camera, and that's where Marcus Bagwell was, because we started seeing the lawn dart and then came back over. Yeah. It's really, really cool to relive that.
Yeah.
And to just know how good the production people were on selling that, man, as actors. Wow.
No, it was legit, man. Like, you watch that stuff now, and somebody who's not a fan, they'll look at that and be like, that is cool. That's cool. You don't see that today.
We get in trouble with that, like several other shoots we did.
Yeah, I bet. So going back real quick to the first NWO promo that you guys did, Kevin Nash Kevin Nash came out and said basically that they have their style. Hogan has his style. He says that this feels like wrestling to me.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been you he might have been talking to. He said he was talking to a production guy. He says, I can make it work. I'll just do sound bites and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. So luckily, Avid editing, nonlinear editing had come into play. And we were really liking using that way of rearranging segments and sections
Yeah.
on the timeline, because we didn't have to do it so linear, like next to each other. We could really jumble it around and mix and match. And that's what made the NWO promos work so good, because we had control of how long people talked, what they talked about, and how they got from one section to another. And that was what made it work ultimately, as far as keeping it balanced.
Was it hard for Hulkster to go to play this role as Hollywood, because he had been doing the Hulk Hogan, Say Your Prayers, Eat Your Vitamins, and all that. Now it's an entirely different thing. Now you're Hollywood Hogan, you got the beard and all that. Was he hard to produce as far as you got to play the bad guy, and he wasn't?
I mean, like I said, he was great to produce. He was always
Yeah.
kind of open for whatever we had to say and ask him. I don't know if you remember the one promo that we did with the ball that was a beach ball that had the world on it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
had him spray paint,
Yep.
on Atlanta and all that. And I wish I still had that beach ball. But yeah, he was always open for what we had to say and to him and what suggestions we made. Yeah, I think it's probably difficult because that's more of a, I guess you might say, a soundbite type atmosphere on getting clever zings in, and that was not Hogan's deal. He was more of a long storyteller, and that was the soundbite era had been, kind of perfected by people like Bill Clinton, and that's really what the NWO promos were. It's little sound bites, little thoughts that led into big message.
So before you became the actual voice behind the paid announcements, I remember hearing someone else's voice. Now it was a guy, but he was so very bland. He was like, "The following announcement's been paid for by the New World Order." Was that you or somebody else?
No, I don't know. I'm not sure about the progression of the voice, other than I do remember where we figured out. I don't know where it was, but I remember. I think it was in the Disney parking lot, but I'm not sure. And I know it was. I know Kevin Nash was. I know Kevin Sullivan was there, and Craig Leathers and Keith Mitchell were there. And I had said that my opinion was that we can't have people that have already been in our crew of announcers doing this. Or if we do have somebody who's with us, we got to break them off somehow and make them turn heel. And I said that I had a guy that I thought had a voice that fit the sound of the NWO. And they said, "Who is it?" I said, "Well, it's this guy." And I couldn't remember the name at the time, but I did since find his name. And unfortunately, he's passed away since. But his name was Kevin Eubanks, and he worked for a radio station that was an alternative radio station, who Jimmy Barron actually worked for, who worked backstage with us a little bit. He was actually on the air with that guy that did promos, but it was for 99X. And it was like, Craig Leathers said, "Well, how does it sound? What does he sound like?" I said, "He sounds like 99X." I said, "It's real breathy. It's really kind of like that. It's somewhat monotone, but very breathy." And I thought it was very unusual. He goes, "Why don't you do it?" I'm like, "Okay." So that's how I got the job. I was voluntold.
Yeah, and that is just iconic, man. Like that's one of the things. I'm jumping ahead real quick because when the WWF brought the NWO in 2002, right? That's what was missing. The paid announcements were missing, and the Neal Pruitt voice of the
Thank you, man.
NWO. Yeah,
Appreciate that.
that's a big. I can't listen to Voodoo Child today without hearing the voiceover. That's legit.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people involved. One of the questions that came up the other day
Yeah.
Was, did they change the NWO music all the time when people came in? It's like, yeah, because this great audio person, the A1s that we had, starting with like Rick Wallace, Mother, these guys that were really so terrific that taught Joe Sparacino his craft. He actually had these cart machines, and he would play like New World Order, and he would hit these buttons and trigger all these different cassettes to go off the Laugh, the For Life, New World Order, all that, the biggest icon in wrestling. All those were often triggered off of these little carts that would be like and look like an 8-track is what they look like.
Yeah.
And they're on a bank of those, and he would be able to press those at different times and make each entrance one of a kind.
So that's one of the questions I have for you. You just mentioned that soundbite, that For Life. Whose voice is that? Who did that? Do you remember?
I believe it just Parasino
Okay.
that did the audio for that. For
Okay.
Live, he was the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Iconic.
actually, it was funny because on one of my podcasts on Neal Pruitt's Secrets of WCW Nitro, which is on iTunes and iHeartRadio with Guy Evans, he said, "Do you know who did part of it?" And I said, "I don't know. I thought it was my voice, and it was actually Eric's voice doing one of those that I didn't realize."
Yeah. Eric actually did the one NWO.
Yeah, I
That
thought that might have been me, but that was Eric.
yeah,
Yeah,
that was Eric. No, we know that one, and then we know because yours is that new world. That I'm telling you, man, it's a mark out thing for me, dude. Like that's yeah, you see right there. Yeah, that's the shit.
It
Honestly.
made it very efficient for me to be able to produce myself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what really helped too because we did things on such odd hours and different times. You never knew when you're going to need something, and I just had a lot of fun doing it, man. It was fun for the NWO Sold Out,
Absolutely.
making up those lines and making fun of people, and it was a joy.
Yeah, your voice. That speaking of the NWO Sold Out pay-per-view, real quick, your voice is all over that show.
Yeah,
You're all over. You know the WCW wrestlers. They don't have music. I don't know that pay-per-view, man, is kind of it's weird.
it was a mess, dude. You
Yeah,
kidding me? It's
yeah.
horrible.
I'm an NWO guy, but
It's terrible.
yeah, that, I,
But
I don't
they
think any
didn't
of
they
them
didn't
are.
involve us production people enough. That was one of the reasons why it sucked.
Oh, really?
No, we did the so. I mean, do you want to go? Is that the road you want to go
Sure.
to?
Yeah, sure.
So the NWO Sold Out. We did the iconic Eric speech in Chicago
Okay.
a week or two before, and all the New World Order were there, and Kemper Rogers was an integral part of directing a lot of that, and the lighting again with Jeff Borenstein and
Oh, we lost him again.
the NWO promo
Yeah.
that in the NWO Sold Out, and did that in Chicago,
Right.
and had a good time doing that. And then we had the three people on the screen, Hogan, Hall, and Nash, on after that intro played, and in living color. That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
We peeled it back and showed it in living color. I don't think the three videos that played at the same time on the three screens was really shot as well as I'd like to have seen it. But we were kind of pressed for time, and there was a lot happening. We had done the garbage truck entrances the night before, and pre-taped.
Why garbage trucks?
I have no idea, but I thought it was kind of clever. I don't know. It was different for sure, and it was cold out there.
Oh, I bet.
The crew was just amazing that they could pull it off.
Yeah, you can see the breath when they're out there talking. It's like
it was like 10 below or something.
Oh man!
I got up the next morning and edited. I stayed in my hotel room and basically pressed my bare butt against the window to let people know the moon was out and I wasn't out there. And Mike Miller and I edited that machine to machine the following day, and thank God he was so good at it. Mike Miller was one of the directors that we had too, and a technical director.
Yeah.
Man, he really pulled that thing together.
Yeah, that I don't know that those sold out shows to me, they just never really clicked. Like I don't know what it was. It's just
hey, dude, I was just thanking God, Frank, that I didn't have to produce an NWO show because I'd have been pulled into that one, and I just thought it was kind of a one-trick pony, honestly.
I have to agree with you. Like even with how the brand was, and just everybody was into it, it kind of showed a little bit. Yeah, we like the NWO, but damn it, we don't like them that much because they did that horrible contest with the women, and
That's the
then
worst. That's the
yeah,
worst. It
yeah,
wasn't our idea. The
yeah.
production people we would have nixed that, man.
Well, I'll tell you what, Neil, your voiceovers for the WCW wrestlers was the funniest stuff. You called what was it? You called Eddie Guerrero a Mexican
Mexican
jump
jumping bean.
bean. Eddie Guerrero.
That probably wasn't too nice, but and the funny part
It's
was
wrestling.
I really like those guys so much.
Yeah.
That was kind of weird to do that, but I think they kind of got a kick out of it too.
Well,
The Steiner brothers was the best reaction, without question.
No, it was funny
Because me being from Ohio and them from Michigan, we always had this, kind of, and still do to this day. I mean, I see them every now and then. Scott and Rick, they live not too far from me, so we still see each other every now and then. And I remember Scott looking up like, "Oh man, yeah."
Yeah.
He was kind of legitimately pissed. I thought the two Michigan dog-faced mutts.
Right. That was funny.
And Jericho, who should have stayed in junior hockey or something.
Right.
Yeah.
That was good stuff.
That was so fun. Oh man.
That was good stuff. That's probably the best part of the show because I mean, honestly, because I mean, out of that entire show, the best match on the card was probably the Steiners versus Hall and Nash and Six versus Eddie Guerrero, that ladder match. Hogan and the Giants sucked.
Yeah.
It's like it was garbage. But
I like the lipstick camera that we had on the stick.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
Right camera, that was clever.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
Man, yeah, that whole daggone that whole thing with the women pageant was just as bizarre as it gets. I don't know whose idea that was. It was
I don't know.
And then a couple of those people that were so-called talent, they were kind of, coming in and doing cameo appearances or something.
Yeah.
Boy, these weren't very entertaining, man.
No, I didn't like it like that. You can skip through a lot of stuff if you want to. You just get down to here's where you know where this show stacks up, right? So the NWO comes out to majority of the NWO members come out to the B team music, and then when Hall and Nash come out, then you hear the Rock House, the NWO music starts playing. Okay, now the big boys coming out because here you go.
Yeah.
And that intro you did for Hogan, you said, what do you say? Movie star.
The biggest icon in wrestling.
Yeah, see that shit right there. That's what I'm talking about. That right there. That's Mark House stuff, man. Real quick, so we further go down the line here with the NWO angle. The NWO splits into two, black and white, red and black, Wolfpack, and that's, to me as a fan watching this, I'm seeing the progression of the NWO in 1998. I'm looking at WCW as a whole in 1998, and it's really getting kind of rough over there. Because especially if you look over at the WWF and what they're doing with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and you got DX, and you got The Rock coming up there, Mr. McMahon, and all that stuff's happening. What's the situation over like in WCW? Because I know you have your stuff going on, but is it chaotic? Is like Eric really losing control here at this point? People coming in telling him what to do?
I think it's a little bit chaotic. I'm sure some people, like Kevin probably had his ear, and I don't know that they had a great direction at the time, and the NWO Wolfpack was just kind of bizarre to me. And I think Eric probably said it best on one of his podcasts with Conrad, where he talked about it was such a lightning in the bottle. He wanted to keep making those bottles full of lightning, but it's just they didn't really know where to end it, and they wanted to keep it going. And I understand why. I mean, you have success with something, you want to, milk it, and they just really never had an end to it. And it just kind of, when it started factioning and out like that, and then the LWO and whatever, Blue W or whatever, everything WO, it just went nowhere. I mean, it just didn't work.
Yeah, and then WCW it's just tanking. It's just declining as we go through 99 and 2000, and then finally 2001 Eric Bischoff's attempting to purchase a company with Fusion Media, and they're trying to buy it for it's been estimated $64 million to buy WCW and the videotape library and all that stuff. It doesn't happen. A certain Stinky McMahon comes into play and buys the company, buys the assets to WCW.
That was pathetic.
Yeah.
$4 million? The
Yeah.
daggone library was worth $4 million.
Yeah.
I mean, we had every tape that they ever produced and every show in the library. I remember helping kind of. We got those revolving library shelves things, and Bob Wrestler Breeze, who was the person who took over in the audio booth after I did to do all the interviews, stuff like that, was the librarian. And yeah, we had everything, and it's just all lined up for a network, and continuous round the clock wrestling. And to sell it for $4 million, somebody got their pockets filled with money, and I'd like to know who.
Well, so there's a theory about that. So Kevin Sullivan, I heard him say this one time. He said basically that Eric Bischoff and Fusion had been asking WCW for the books and to do due diligence, and somehow the WWF got the book. That's how the sale came about so quick. They started on Friday, and I think they got a deal, I think maybe Sunday night. And then that's when they announced, Vince shows up on Nitro on Monday. Something about Brad Siegel. I think he might have had some kind of connection with McMahon back in the day or something like that.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, it was just very, very weird to me that Vince got it. And
it just doesn't logically make sense in business.
Yeah, it doesn't. And just for this guy to come in, Jamie Kellner to come in and say, we're going to cancel the programming for. This is what pisses me off to this day about this. WCW and Jim Crockett Promotions built Superstation TBS. It built the Turner Network. Without the Turner Network, there would have been nothing. Without WCW or wrestling, there would have been
put them on
no
the map.
Network.
Let's put it that way.
Exactly, yeah. It did. So for a guy to come in, and I think honestly, to me, it all started with the first merger with Time Warner and Turner. It started there. I think Ted, and you were there. Ted started losing control and didn't realize how much control he was actually losing.
And they were the only game in town, so they thought they were the greatest at what they did.
Right.
And hey, when you're one of one, yeah, you can be number one. Yeah. But they really didn't have a clue of what was going on with our business, and it's ultimately proved itself.
Yeah. So the final WCW Nitro, actually it was two shows. So they had the very last Thunder, which what was your opinion of Thunder? Thunder gets a lot of flack.
Yeah, it was a beat show.
Yeah.
Second show, I really didn't have much to do with it.
Okay.
I had things that aired on there.
Yeah.
But I really, you kind of get involved with your own stuff and trying to get your stuff done, and the other things you just kind of got to let go. And I really never watched it much.
Yeah.
I know it gave some people a break, which is terrific, and younger talent and things like that. But yeah, I can't really speak on it because I don't really know that much about it.
Yeah, there's been no Best of Thunder DVD put out by WWE, and there's a reason why. So when it comes back to Nitro, which was you were on, did it get to a point in time? I mean, you were there in you were there in late '99 when Vince Russo came over from the WWF to come over to WCW. How was Russo? What's your opinion of Vince Russo?
It's not very high.
Oh, really?
No, I never saw it from the very beginning. I didn't understand. I mean, I heard they had success at WWE for a little bit, but it was the longest time before I even met the guy. And I talked to him for a few minutes, and that was about it. He didn't ask me anything about me, or he did like the promos. I kind of remember him saying something about that. But other than that, I mean, really very little, next to no discussion. And not to say that I needed to be catered or anything, or but I figured, I thought I had a big part of the success of the NWO with the crews we had. But he just kind of passed it off. It seemed like, and some of the stuff that he came up with, I mean, I thought for real, and I've told this on several podcasts. I thought the guy was getting paid by Vince. I really did. No, really. I mean, to make stuff look that bad and have that crazy of ideas that just really didn't seem to have any sense to him whatsoever. I thought he was getting paid, honestly.
So you thought that
I still ain't sure if he was.
so you thought that basically Vince sent Vince down pretty much to sabotage, just finish
Wouldn't
him
that
off.
make sense to you, Frank?
It kind of would, but
It makes sense to you to have somebody come in there and turn your lights off and take the NWO sign down and, you know, throw away your backgrounds and tip them over. I mean, doesn't Vince is a businessman,
yeah.
and if he knows you're reeling, I mean,
Vince
it's
Russo.
so easy for him to get in his ear. He had his own phone number. It's so easy to have a conversation. Say, hey, look, here's what we're gonna do. You know this thing ain't gonna last so long anyway. So why don't we just, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, make Hogan look like he's an idiot, bury him, and put the belt on yourself, and bring people like David Arquette in. What a mess, Dave. It's embarrassing.
So you're not. So I take it those the year 2000 and 2001 is not a very good years for Neal Pruitt in WCW.
No, I mean, what was I doing other than okay? Well, so what do you want me to do now? Yeah, I'll do it. But I guess too, Frank, I was spoiled a bit with the input that I had.
Yeah.
With the NWO,
He brought the NWO, but he brought the NWO back, NWO 2000, the silver and black. So you had nothing to do with the
well, a lot of the stuff that was backstage, if it was backstage live kind of look, a lot of times I wasn't even there, so I don't even know what happened. But that's the kind of cool thing about some of the stuff we got to do, where we'd set up ideas and productions in the way that we thought would be good to go.
Yeah.
And then people carried them forward after that. And so some of the skits, like Six being Flair and things like that, I didn't really work on those. Mostly the really, I should say, multi-cut, slick-looking productions, what we did back at the office. And I would only go out, like, if Hogan had something to do in particular, or he was at his house and need to be interviewed, or whatever, whatever that involved, like getting called at the last second to go to Charleston, or the NWO birthday party, things like that seemed like they needed something else other than just one camera following somebody backstage or in a little area backstage. So that's kind of Macho Man, talking about Diamond Dallas Page in Nashville. That's things like that is what I worked on mostly.
So, Bash at the Beach 2000. Were you at that show? The infamous Hogan, Jeff Jarrett lays down, Hogan.
Yeah.
What did you think of that? Because they recently did a Dark Side of the Ring episode about Bash at the Beach 2000. Some people think it was a shoot. Some people think it was a work. Vince Russo claims that it all went to plan. Hogan and Bischoff say it didn't. Hogan actually ends up suing WCW for this, and the judge throws it out because Vince Russo, in character, went after the character of Hulk Hogan and not Terry Bollea. So let's say what do you think about this situation? I mean, there's people that today think that Montreal was a work.
I mean, it could be. They all could be. They're really good at working people.
Yeah.
Pay so much,
Right.
I kind of felt bad for Jeff Jarrett because of his involvement with Russo anyway. Even knowing the guy,
Oh, right.
it kind of puts a little taint on you, because I really like Jeff. I think he's a great guy, and still do. I think he's a terrific person. But for him to have to lay down and do that, it just felt really strange, dude. I'm telling you, it's like the finger poke of doom.
What did you think about the finger poke of doom? What did you think about that?
I really wasn't all that appreciative of Goldberg anyway. I thought they could have taken a lot of people and put in that position. I think. I mean, yeah, he made it happen, which is good for him. And the rise was not just because of him. It was people allowed that to happen, and that's how people wrestlers are made, But I did really got to say this. every time I talk about him, I appreciated all he did for the kids that were in wheelchairs and all the Make a Wish Foundation stuff that he did, man. That guy did so much for people that were underprivileged or people that were in need of a friend and um, really needed to be uplifted. He did a great job with all that. I really appreciated that from the day one. I just thought that there's a lot of people that could have done that and they could have put in that position and made it happen.
Yeah, it's yeah. It's just like he came out
That's
of
my
nowhere.
personal opinion, though. Hey,
No, I got you. No, he.
his success cannot be denied.
Yeah, no, and
He did
people
a fantastic job making it happen.
they did, but then later on he got exposed in the WWE. Because they couldn't recreate what they did down in Atlanta with him at WCW. Did you? So real quick, um, the last WCW Monday Nitro was in it was in
And
Panama
Panama
City.
City.
Yeah, and it was the final night, the Night of Champions.
Mm-hmm.
How was it to produce that show? That show looked very different. wasn't really heavily no storylines involved or anything like that. WWF is basically taking over at this point. They're going to do the simulcast. Shane McMahon is there that night. I see Bruce Pritchard is also there.
Right.
Basically, you guys are doing your job, but you got Big Brother looking over your shoulder, and that Big Brother is the WWF, who is the new owners. What was the experience like that?
Didn't hear much from Bruce Pritchard, but I'd like to meet him. I'm sure we could talk a lot about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And he's a good friend of Conrad Thompson's, and I was actually the first person to be interviewed on Conrad Thompson's show.
Really?
which was a big honor. Yeah, but the appearance of them, they kind of walked in the room and didn't do much. Didn't really. I don't think we're in need of telling us to do our job or anything, and people just kind of were in zombie land, pretty much. Going through the motions of knowing this is the last time we're ever going to see our great friends again, who kind of became family members of ours over the years, and worked that closely together. And a lot of tears afterwards. And I remember I was standing next to Flair. We were in one room, and there was just one TV there. And he just looked over there. He goes, "Can you believe this?" Because we saw the WWE lower third. It's the copyright.
Yeah.
And I think Flair was done with it anyway. He's ready to move on. But as far as the production people go, that was a tough day, man, for everybody. Really.
Is it true that there was a meeting in Atlanta with WWF to talk about what was going to happen as far as if they were going to bring anybody over? There's two stories. So it's that story about the meeting in Atlanta with the WWF personnel, but there's also the story about the WCW employees at the office that basically they had cops there or something like that, and they would watch people bring us. What was
like
that?
The last day everybody was leaving and everything.
Yeah.
But I don't remember I guess the WWE did probably come down there, but I don't remember any significant, speeches that made us all feel all fuzzy and stuff like that. Because,
right.
It would have been good for a lot of us to be given other opportunities. And TBS actually promised a lot of us positions, but never came through on any of it.
Of course.
There's only a few people that got to work eventually with TBS, but that's okay. I had a good run, man. I can't complain.
Right.
It was a terrific time.
No, your work is still being celebrated till this day.
Oh, thank you, man. The cruise, that's why I was able to pull it off, because they did whatever it took every day.
Did you happen to see any of the WCW product that was integrated into the WWF during the invasion, or you just pretty much just tapped out at that point?
No, it's I'm too close to it, man.
Yeah.
I maybe saw little snippets here and there, but yeah, it was painful, because that's like that's like your baby getting taken away,
Yeah, that's how I feel about it, man. Even till this day, you think about WCW and you go on the WWE Network and like this is like, this is what happened. It's like It's just one of those things, man, where like this
Yeah.
company that rose so high up, man, it's just and it fell so fast. It's like
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I didn't think I'd be looking for a job, after the success that we had with that. I didn't think that was going to be my future, but that's how it goes. And like I said, it was a good run, man. And
Yeah,
we had so many great people. I really felt bad for them, especially, because their families, man, they relied on those paychecks.
absolutely, absolutely. So to finish up with you, Neil, you mentioned earlier that you actually went to work with Deep South Wrestling.
Hmm.
How did that come about? Who did you work with? And yeah, you were still in the business.
Loved it. Jody Hamilton
Yep.
called me up, and I think he was not happy with the other person who was involved with the production. So I really don't think they even got the TV off the ground, and they had plenty of time to do it.
Yeah.
And he said, "Do you want to get the band back together again?" I'm like, "Of course. What's the deal?" And we needed to produce a show, and um, it wasn't the same setup like OVW. We really did taped stuff, but it was an opportunity to work with Jody again because I had my first venture into wrestling was actually Deep South Championship Wrestling,
Okay.
which was before WCW, and uh, it was probably part of the reason why I was able to get into the wrestling business the second time because I'd worked with professional athletes on a nightly sports show that I directed called Bobach Sporting Times when I was 25. So that really helped me be around celebrities, and I don't treat anybody any differently than treat the janitor.
Right.
And my dad said, "Nobody's better than you, and you're no better than anybody else." And I've always carried that with me and told my son the same thing. It's just the way it is. We're all people.
Absolutely.
We all bleed red.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where, you know, um, it was so fun to work with Bill DeMont again.
Mhm.
He was a hard worker, man. The guy worked hard, and see the young talent like the Miz come through there, and
Right.
Ryan O'Reilly, who's Khan, and working with the freaking Deacon, who's now Luke Gallows, and
Right.
the Majors brothers. They're doing really well too, and Jack Swagger, and boy, I could just count them
Name them
off.
all.
So many of
Yeah.
them, I probably can't name all of them. There's so many good people that really wanted to do it, and Jody was trying to do his best to keep them and make them good enough to be on TV, because oftentimes WWE wanted to push people on TV too quickly. He thought,
Mhm.
like the Great Khali, and he's afraid he's going to hurt somebody, and
Jeez.
people like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a great experience because I got to do things the way I thought an independent show should run, and the way it should look with the minimal budget we had. We had no money to do anything.
So WWE wasn't really that invested in Deep South because
Not really.
later on the Deep South would actually transition into Florida Championship Wrestling (FCW).
Yeah,
Then later on would become NXT.
right.
So yeah.
Yeah, they kind of. I thought they kind of did me wrong a little bit on that because they kind of milked me of information of what we should get Deep South
Yeah.
as far as the switchers go, the lighting package, everything. I did a lot of research on that. And, yeah, I got paid for it. I mean, I wasn't complaining. But they took that all and just in the middle of the night, they just took everything and left. I thought that was kind of a bullshit way of doing it, and never even really talked to me much about anything because their relationship with Jody had deteriorated because he was looking out for the people and wanted them to do their best before they got into TV, and makes sense. And he didn't do everything that they wanted him to do. And me being affiliated with Jody my whole career, and would have no regrets on any of that because I learned so much from him.
Right.
He was my mentor all the way through, and good friend in WCW. And um, it was that was at his funeral a few years back, and he was instrumental in my life, man. And I wasn't gonna be the one that was gonna turn against whatever he had going on. So WWE, I think maybe they thought I was kind of cut from the same cloth because yeah, I'm somewhat old school too because I respected the business and respected the way the kayfabe worked, and you know, as a musician or a magician, show how you do your tricks, and I kept that to myself until the cat got let out of the bag, and that's the only reason I talk sometimes the way I do about what we did because of that. Had I been still in kayfabe, I would have never say half this stuff.
Right. Well, Vince exposed the business a long time ago, and then WCW, you know, they exposed the business as well.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Unfortunately, during the Russo era.
Mhm.
Um, Final question for you.
Yes, sir.
Um, so the following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order. This thing is iconic. WWE has merchandise right now with that saying on it. I don't know if you know that or not.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Are you getting any royalties or anything from WWE because of this? Teddy Long's a good friend of mine,
Love Teddy
and
Long. Tell
yeah,
him I said hello.
I will do that.
Love Teddy. We had some fun together, man.
Yeah. Um, he mentioned that they don't get anything as far as the videos and all that stuff goes. So, say you were the voice of the NWO. What you're one of the big reasons why it works because the guys can do their thing out in the ring and they can cut the promos, they can wrestle and all that stuff. That's great. But from the production wise, you're the voice. You're the one doing the promos, cutting them together. Some of the best segments I ever saw, honestly,
Oh, thank you.
was the NWO Saturday Night segments, the empty arena segments. And I'm like,
Oh yeah.
the NWO was doing that way before there was ever a pandemic. So
Right. That was
that
a
was
weird
some
deal.
good stuff. Yeah.
Well, let me tell a little story about that real quick.
Sure.
Um, so I grew up in a small town in Northeast Ohio, steel mill town, and my two brothers and I were never able to watch wrestling as kids, so we didn't know that much about it.
Right.
But I had a great family life, and some of my cousins still live up there, and my brother still lives there now, and with my mom, and we just had a terrific time. But anyway, some guy was watching the um, WWE replays of those matches you're just talking about,
Yeah.
and I had been able to, control some of the stuff that went on with that. And I said that these two guys were from Leavittsburg, Ohio. Well, that's where I'm from, Leavittsburg, Ohio.
Yeah.
So some guy's watching it from my area. And he goes, "Hey, there's got to be a connection," because nobody would even say Leavittsburg, Ohio.
Right.
So he went ahead and tracked me down, and then he was a big wrestling fan, and then he introduced me to the person who was the entertainment editor for the local newspaper where I grew up, and he did an interview with me about being in wrestling and everything. That was a lot of fun. That was a big honor. So that was kind of funny that you mentioned those very matches. But I thought they were pretty entertaining, and Nick Patrick did a terrific job on it. I
Oh.
even asked him the other day. He does a little podcast too, and asked him about that mask, where he got it from, and I thought, he might have brought it from home or something. That, his dad may have worn it, trying to get away from the people trying to beat him up when he was a heel or something back in the day when he wore his hood, right? But no, he said he just got it from somebody who was sent out to get the mask. So that's how
no, Nick Patrick. It was so obvious it was Nick Patrick when he was.
I love that obvious stuff, though.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah, it was good. It was good stuff. The NWO having their own referee. I felt bad for Nick Patrick though because he was the only referee they had for Sold Out, the very first Sold Out.
That's right.
So he run that whole thing.
Yeah.
But
the NWO voice.
Yeah.
So here's what is an interesting thing that is going to have to pay dividends. They never had me under contract as a voiceover person at WCW.
Oh, really?
No. So WWE really didn't do their due diligence on this. They didn't have me as a contract person for talent. So they definitely owe me some money.
Yeah, and I would go get it.
Yeah,
because you're all over that network. I'm telling you, the paid announcements are still there. I mean, you're saying that the following announcements are paid for by the new that's on a T-shirt.
Yeah, I have people. I mean, you can't, as far as I know,
yeah,
copyright that saying or anything.
Right.
But as far as my voice goes, I'm using it all over the place. Yeah, they didn't have me under contract, and they never asked when everything was transferred over whether they did, because I should be getting royalties on the video games that it's on, the entrances that they have when they're at the various WrestleCons and all this. I should be getting some sort of funds off of it.
Yeah.
And I gotta go collect it.
I hope it works out for you. As a matter of fact, when we get done with this, I will send you that T-shirt I'm referring to. I'll send it to you and let you look at it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
But final words here for you, Neal. Let everybody know what you're up to and where they can catch you.
I'm available for independent things on the weekends if possible. Like I usually have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday open, so I can help with various events. I'm a television director, but I actually have a full-time job, which I'm very grateful for. I do promo work still and things like that in a totally different realm other than the wrestling business. And that's a great job, and I work with a lot of great people and true professionals. It's just a lot different than it used to be at WCW. But I just wanted to thank everybody that watches these kind of podcasts and is interested in things that we used to do, because we really did enjoy ourselves. We did our best to entertain people, and from people that swept the floors to the people that turned the lights out, everybody tried their best, man, and did as hard as work as they could. And to have the flexibility that we had for the creativity that we did was a real honor, a real pleasure, because Eric just kind of let us go do what we do. And you can't ask for anything better than that as a creative. It was so much fun. I loved every minute of it. I miss it. I miss a lot of the travel. I miss the people that I work with. I miss the talent. Man, when we get back together at those WrestleCons and things like that, we just laugh our heads off and just have a good time and reminisce. And thanks everybody for watching.
Definitely. And if I got two things to ask of you, if you could do your following announcements and paid for by the New World Order, and if you could do the following podcast, the No Gimmicks podcast, you know how to do it.
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
That's the shit.
The following podcast may have been paid for by the New World Order.
That's excellent. All right. Well, we appreciate you, Neal Pruitt, for coming on here on the No Gimmicks podcast. And I am Fabulous Frankie D. And you can check this out. You know what? We got one request. Let's see, Neal, can you be the voice of No Gimmicks? We don't we don't have Vince's money, so I don't know.
Yeah, man. Thanks for asking.
No doubt.
Sorry about the technical issues. I'm really not sure what happened. I know I only have so much bandwidth on my phone, and I watch a lot of YouTube training videos.
Yeah, no, that's all good.
I'm sure some things have probably been already burned up in my cell phone bill. But thanks for hanging in there with me. I appreciate it.
No problem.
And hopefully, if you can make the edits, maybe sections that I wasn't on there.
Yeah, we'll spice it up and do it like you used to do back in the day. But this says, for Neal Pruitt, this is Frankie D, and you have been listening to the No Gimmicks podcast right here on the DFPN. And always remember, when you're NWO, you're NWO for life.
The preceding announcement has been paid for by the New